Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast with your hosts, Tim and Carter.
What's trending, Enrichers? Carter Wilcoxson, founder of CSI Financial Group here, with my co-host and former wealth advisor, Tim James, founder of
ChemicalFreeBody.com and your new health advisor. This is the show where we reveal the connection between physical and financial abundance.
Hey, welcome back, Enrichers. Carter Wilcoxson coming to you live from Phoenix Open Week and Super Bowl week out here in Phoenix, Arizona. Very excited. There's a buzz going on around everywhere, as any of our Enrichers who have been listening to us for any amount of time know. I'm a huge Chiefs fan. Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, but we're calling it the Kelce Bowl because for the first time in the history of the NFL, you have two brothers going against one another in the Super Bowl. You got Jason Kelce from the Philadelphia Eagles, the center, number 62, going against his brother, Travis Kelce, for the Kansas City Chiefs, number 87, greatest tight end, I'm going to guess, ever in the history of the NFL when it's all said and done. But anyway, very exciting time. And as normal, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Mr. Chemical Free Body himself, Tim James. Timmy, how are you doing, my man?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. I'm on day 2 of a water fast, which I don't recommend to newbies at all because people are malnourished. So once you get the nourishment, once you get unmalnourished, then you can think about a water fast. But just really excited. My mental clarity is amazing. And isn't the waste management open or something going on in Phoenix right now?
Waste Management Phoenix Open is also happening. So Sunday is the final round of the Waste Management Phoenix Open here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Sunday's also the Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. So it's crazy around here right now.
It's almost like I can imagine you being a little kid having Christmas 2 days in a row.
But it's all on the same day. Yeah, it's crazy.
I had one of my private coaching clients is actually playing in that waste management deal.
What do you mean?
I don't know. He said he's playing golf over there. That's what he told me.
Was he playing in the Pro-Am? Is he a professional golfer?
He's not a professional golfer, but he's a professional baseball player.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then he's probably playing in the Pro-Am. So they have a Monday Pro-Am, which was yesterday.
Mm.
The Wednesday
that must be what it is.
Which is the big Pro-Am, is the Wednesday Pro-Am. That's the one that costs you $15,000 to play in as a guest.
Yeah, I'm sure that he told me about it yesterday. I'm like, oh, this is going to come up tomorrow during the podcast. I knew it.
Bam! Right out of the gate. So,
all right. Well, enough about us and golf, for God's sakes. Let's get into our guest, because we had an 11-minute debate beforehand and a discussion. It was awesome. I'm really excited to have Barbara on. So why don't you bring her in, Carter?
Yeah. So, hey, Enrichers, you are in for a treat. We have an industry aficionado when it comes to aging. Barbara Micheletti of Interrupting Aging is joining us today, also out here in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. So, Barbara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Carter and Tim. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. So we're going to just jump right into it. And, Interrupting Aging, we're going to take a little rewind here. We're going to go back, right? What got you to where you're at today, right? So let's share with the Enrichers, your journey, your path to where you're at today. Where do you think that kind of started in the first place?
Well, I have to say it actually started in my childhood. I was surrounded by a lot of very kind older adults in my neighborhood and in my church. And so the seed was planted that I liked older people back then when I was a young person. But I actually didn't pursue gerontology per se, which gerontology, all that is the study of aging. I actually didn't pursue that until I was finishing up my undergrad, which was in Tucson, Arizona. And I could share with you a story of how I decided to go specifically into gerontology, if you'd like to hear that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get to that in just a second and everything, but talk a little bit about, where it was, where did you grow up? So I'm assuming you're a Wildcat then, you said, down in Tucson. I don't know if you went to University of Arizona.
No, I wasn't. I actually grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Illinois, central Illinois. And my parents were military. So I grew up near a military Air Force base. And so that's where the community, it was a very small community where we had a lot of older adults in the neighborhood and the community and in the church. And so that's really what planted the seed of working with older adults in my later years. And I didn't move out here to Arizona until 1993 when my mom was living in Tucson. And that's how I ended up in Tucson and pretty much stayed in Arizona ever since then.
Nice. So you ended up moving out here when you were just a wee little one then in 93, right?
Well, actually, I was 2 years into my undergraduate degree in psychology. I had 2 years at the University of Colorado in Denver. And while I loved going there and I enjoyed living in Denver back in the day, I was an older student when I started. My mom, who was aging herself, was living in Tucson, Arizona. And I had two sisters there at the time as well. And so I made the decision to stop school in Colorado and then to move and finish my undergraduate in Tucson, Arizona, which is how I ended up there.
Wow. Gotcha. Awesome. So then you ended up eventually making your way from Tucson up to the real world in Phoenix then. I'm just messing. I've lived in Tucson. I spent a little bit of time there. Not as big a fan of Tucson as I am of Phoenix. I think there's a lot more options here. But you made your way up here. And then how long have you been in the Phoenix metro area?
Well, I've actually lived in Arizona for 28 years. And so I spent 10 years in Tucson, 10 years in Prescott, Arizona. And now I'm coming on 8 years here in the Valley. And I really enjoy living in the Valley. It's really my favorite place. I feel like I've got a really good scope of the entire state of Arizona, having lived in some major parts of Arizona. And so Phoenix is my favorite.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, let's go ahead. I want to hear that story. I know our enrichers are interested in, what was it that really launched you into getting into the field that you're in?
So back in Tucson, I was finishing up my undergraduate degree. So let's go back to 1995. And I was finishing in my undergraduate degree and going into graduate school. Actually, I'm sorry, it was 1997 and finishing my undergraduate degree and in my graduate in the starting of my graduate program. And I was working as a teller in a bank and surrounded by senior, living communities. And we had many of those folks who were our clients. And one of the people in particular was one of my favorite clients, and her name was Betty. And so Betty was in her mid-70s, and she just had a quick smile. She was a lot of fun to work with. So when she come into the bank, I'd always have her come up, "Hey, Betty, come on over and I'll take care of you." I noticed over time, because I wasn't a gerontologist back then, but I noticed over time that Betty would forget my name and she would repeat herself. And I would have to carry our conversations sometime. And so I didn't think too much about it. Again, I wasn't a gerontologist. One day, Betty came in and said, I saw her at the door and I said, "Hey, come on over, Betty, I'll take care of you." So she came up to my teller's window. She says, "Barb, I need a $10,000 cashier's check." And I said, $10,000 cashier's check, that's a lot of money. Like, what are you going to do with it? You're going to go on a cruise? You're going to take care of yourself, pamper yourself. What are you going to do? And at first she didn't want to tell me. And I said, "Betty, you kind of have to tell me because the bank is going to ask. That's a lot of money. And I need to create a cashier's check, have the manager sign it." So she reluctantly told me that she was sending it to a very nice young man overseas whom she'd met on the phone. And I said, "Okay, is he family? Is he somebody that's related to you?" And she was waving her hand. No, honey. No, honey. But I trust him. And I know he's going to take really good care of me with that money. So I got up from my chair, went behind me, created a cashier's check for $10,000, and I walked over to the branch manager's office. And it's still so clear in my mind's eye, I could see this. And I walked into his office and I told him what had happened. I said, "Our client, she's at my window. She wants a $10,000 cashier's check. She wants to send it to somebody she met over the phone. I've watched her over this period of time forgetting who I am sometimes, not remembering our conversations, repeating herself." And I said, "I'm very concerned about her. Does she have a trusted contact?" And I'll never forget the way he looked at me. And he said, "No, it's none of our business. She could spend her money how she pleases. Give me the check and I'll sign it." So he signed the check. He handed it back to me. And I walked back over to my teller's window and I gave it to Betty. Here you go, Betty. She plucked it out of my hand. She's like, thank you, Barb. She walked out the door. I found out shortly thereafter that Betty was diagnosed with dementia. Betty she was living in an assisted living community, and some distant relative that they had found at the community had Betty committed or locked in down into a lockdown facility and a memory care facility. They took away her car, they took away her home and her life, basically. And I felt like back then the bank really failed her. And I felt like I had kind of failed her as well. And it was at that time, around that time, as I was in my just getting in my graduate program, is when I made the decision to focus on gerontology and to work in some capacity helping older adults.
Wow. Well, I mean, that and of course, you obviously have a heart for helping people. Plus, as you mentioned, early on in this conversation, that you were attracted to like older generation, right? They're kind, they're nice, there was this appreciation for them, right? So I can only imagine how difficult that would have been, because you're probably looking at Betty like if this was my mom, I wouldn't want my mom going through these types of things. So that's really what enabled you, or really sort of pushed you towards the passion of where you're at today. Then is that fair?
It's a fair statement to say yes. And I ended up doing creating a master's thesis around telemarketing fraud and older adults, based on my experience with Betty, actually, with cognitive issues. And that's abnormal aging. We all don't normally age into dementia or any other type of impaired cognitive ability or anything that was abnormal aging. But I did decide to create my master's thesis on fraud, senior fraud, financial fraud, and older adults. And
you know what this story reminds me of? There's a movie called I Care a Lot. Have you guys seen it?
I started watching it, and then I for some reason didn't get back into it again. But
it was about like a crooked legal guardian who was just taking money from elderly people, and she would find people and swindle them. So what happened? Well, who was this dude overseas? Was it a relative or?
No, it was telemarketing fraud. So, and it happens all the time. And the numbers back then, it was bad. It's epic proportion now. It was bad back then. And this is 25 years ago, when I was a 34-year-old figuring out what gerontology meant and what telemarketing fraud was and what it meant to be an older person and all that. And so I took that unique perspective of normal aging, aging consumer behaviors, and then just adding in life events such as diminished cognitive capacity or loneliness, and she was living alone. And so this was somebody who was just making her feel good and such. And so she was alone, she was isolated. So taking that type of research and combining it together and coming up with exactly what you talked about, Tim. I haven't seen that, but I've heard of it. As far as that's under guardianship, that's somebody who is grossly taking advantage of people under a guardianship situation.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, if it's not rated PG at all. So if you have any kids, it's not probably the movie to sit down and watch with little kids or nothing like that at all. But anyway, if you're an adult, it was recommended from a friend of mine, and I remember watching it. And I don't watch a whole lot of movies, but I was like, holy crap, it was a pretty freaking, I mean, just wait till you see this lady, man. She's crazy. She literally is crazy. She's just taking people's money left and right. And it's like, it's sad, because it's like, I know there's a lot of truth out there. This happens. My mom and dad are in their 80s. They get solicitation calls all the time. My mom and dad don't even answer the phone. They'll wait until somebody leaves a message, and as they're leaving it, they'll pick it up if they know them. That's
great. Yeah. So you're in that age group of, I called it club sandwich. You're part of a club sandwich. I'm not sure if you have kids, but you've got parents that you have to think about and are concerned with and everything, and to make sure how their aging is going, and are they living alone? Are they living independently? Are they living in some sort of an assisted living? I mean, you're a part of so many other people. Like, I lost my parents 21 years ago, 22 years ago. They passed away as younger, older people. So I work with a lot of folks who do have their parents, older parents and elderly parents, still alive.
How old were your parents when they passed?
Early 70s, but they weren't that healthy as well either. They just didn't take care of, which is where you come in as well. The taking good care of our bodies. Yeah. And I saw that as a young person, and I just had made the decision decades ago that I wasn't going to live that type of life, that I would have a very active life and a very healthy life.
Yeah, and for those listening, Barbara looks really healthy, and I think I'd be a pretty good judge of that, right, Carter?
There's no doubt about it. Yes, there's definitely.
Carter's actually getting healthier looking too, dude. You're looking good, man.
Yeah, well, it was funny because you mentioned about a water fast. So
and younger.
I was just like, I need to rip the Band-Aid off. I need to shock the system, right? So I did a 3-day water fast to start the year, and I actually started.
Love it.
My birthday's January 2nd. I actually started on my birthday, and my wife goes, "Wait a second, so I'm not taking you out to the steakhouse or anything. We're not doing that." She's like, "Really? You're going to start today?" I said, "I got to do it today. If I wait till tomorrow, then I might wait till the next day." And I said, "I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. I'm shocking the system." So I did a 3-day water fast. And then one of these, because I'm on all these different types of health email blasts that I get all the time, all because of the Health Hero Show probably. This guy is promoting a 5-day water fast. I'm like, man, I'm almost 3 days into this. What's 2 more days, right? So
that's totally me.
5-day water fast. But I got to tell you, it was a great stepping stone for me to get into that. So then I went from that into intermittent fasting. And what that's really done for me is it's taken a lot of pressure off me, right? Because I know the window I can eat in. And obviously I'm trying to eat, smart when I'm eating that, when I'm not like, hey, it's Cheez-It time now for 6 hours. But what that's done for me is it's really put me in more of a my self-controlled environment where it's like, okay, I'm waiting. I'm not going to snack late at night because, you got the cutoff. My biggest issue, and I think any of you enrichers that are listening out there right now, if you're anything like a normal person, 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, you're like, oh, I'm a little hungry. Maybe I'll snack here and I'll snack there. That was my downfall. A little snack here, a little snack there, compounds after time. But that intermittent fasting where it's like from noon to 6, that's my window. I'm drinking tons of water all day, but I'm definitely eating smart, intelligently in that little window. And it's done wonders for me. And thank goodness for the Green 85 as well.
Awesome. All right, enrichers, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll be getting into the gerontologist world with Barbara Micheletti. We'll be right back.
Estate planning. What does that even mean? When the inevitable happens for everyone on this planet, your estate plan kicks into action. But first, let's start with what an estate is. An estate is simply everything you own. Now, here's the issue and what needs to be understood when this event occurs. You only have 2 choices on this plan. Number 1, either you plan how your estate gets handed out and distributed to those you leave behind. Or number 2, your state decides who gets everything you own. For the first time ever, you can now take complete and total control of this plan that you've been deprived of for most of your life and generations before you. You can get personalized assistance along the way with a team of specialists whose job it is to make sure you have true peace of mind. It's important to understand that estate planning is a journey, and rest assured that our team will be available to you all along the way and at every step. Welcome to eState Plan, home of the last estate plan you'll ever need. To learn more, make sure to reach out to your local advisor licensed with us or go to our website for more information.
What's up, enrichers? Tim James here. I'm back with my co-host, Carter Wilcoxson. Get in the house today. We've got Barbara Micheletti. She's been doing gerontology for 25 years, which is the study of aging. And what's really interesting about her is she was actually licensed to be a financial advisor and then decided to take a detour and start helping other financial advisors and insurance agents understand aging and how that can apply to their business, because if you understand aging, then you can help. You're much better to help your clients with different products and tools and how you just talk with them and planning, family planning, because there's the inevitable. So why don't you get into that, Barbara? Like talk about that detour moment. Like you're getting licensed, you're getting I think you said you got your 65, your insurance license. Then what happened?
Well, I had been a 13-year property casualty insurance agent up until that time. So 25 years as a gerontologist, 13 years as a property casualty insurance agent. And over the years of being a regular insurance agent, I came across a lot of my clients who are mostly business owners, first generation, second generation business owners had a lot of age-related money issues. That was just tearing their business apart, tearing their family apart. I could only help them so far as an insurance agent and as a non-practicing gerontologist. So I made the decision to level up my game and become a financial planner. So I went through and took the securities test to become licensing and all that, to become a financial planner. When I got into the financial planning community, I realized over time that my highly esteemed colleagues, super smart, very dedicated, very passionate about helping their clients financially plan for that retirement number and such, not necessarily have those age-related money conversations, such as, okay, you're married. What if your spouse becomes demented? Who's going to pay? Who's going to be the caregiver? Are you going to age in place at home? What if it's your husband that becomes demented? Although it's usually women, out of the 6 million women people that are living with Alzheimer's in the United States, 75% are women. So if it's your husband that becomes demented, at some point, are you going to still be the caregiver? Are you going to be able to take care of them? So it's those difficult, sensitive conversations to have with your clients, to have a plan in place. Not only a number plan, what your retirement number is at $1 million, $2 million. It's not only that, it's, hey, what if you develop dementia? What if you become a caregiver? And who are you going to be the caregiver for? Your mom, your dad, your spouse's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. So you look beyond the numbers and you look at what is the impact of your clients' lives as far as developing a dementia, becoming a caregiver. Do you have that estate plan in place? How can we create that consensus of putting an estate plan together and not create multi-generational trauma or adult child estrangement, things like that? And end of life, which we as a society have a very hard time talking about how we want to die, and having those type of conversations and making sure you have all the legal documents that come in with that. So it's really, that's anything age related with a number is where I come in at.
So it really helps you point out the realities of life, and it allows the financial planners to have a conversation in a very meaningful, impactful way that will wake people up. Because, like, you could say, hey, Jane, Tom here's, he's 220 pounds. Okay. You're 115. If he needs to have his butt wiped every day, are you the one going to do that? And when he slips and falls, are you going to be able to pick him up and get him into the bed? Because it's going to be dead weight. It's going to be dead weight. And I know I'm just, for the folks that are out there listening, this is really important stuff, because I've lived in houses with people. Like, by default, one time I was living with a gal to help her with breast cancer, and her mother had dementia, and then her dad ended up causing some problems. She was like 89, 90. Dad was like 92. He had to live with her. They were divorced for 40 years. Now they're back living with each other, both with dementia, and just like, going. But he fell, and I had to pick him up, and I'm strong. I work out. I take care of myself. I used to hunt and fish and pack deer and elk and stuff out of the mountains, and like, it was hard lifting this guy. He was 200 pounds of dead weight, and I'm strong. So that conversation is very important, because this stuff is happening. Now, hopefully from what you're doing, you're also telling, like, the best thing is to take care of your freaking health, right? That's the best thing. You can get ahead of this stuff so you don't have to deal with this or minimize your chances of doing it, but pointing these things out. So besides Alzheimer's, dementia, there's these things called activities of daily living. Whatever happens, like if you can't go to the bathroom or you can't get up and get out of a chair, people don't think about this. What if you can't go up and down stairs, and all of a sudden you need a ADA wheelchair type stuff coming in? Are you planning for the money for that? I did reverse mortgages, and a lot of these times when people, the reverse mortgages are just a financial planning tool, and they're the right for the right person at the right time. But there are these people, they'd have a house, 2-story house, they can't go up the stairs anymore. So there was a couple options. You spend, $13,000 and have a chair ramp going up and down, like George did in Seinfeld. Remember when he would pretend he was hurt? And then, or you have to remodel the downstairs and put a master bedroom downstairs, which is going to cost you. Right. So it's stuff like that. And people they don't think about, I'm fine now. But all of a sudden it hits you right in the face. Right.
Exactly. It does. You're right. I mean, you're just so spot on. It just hits you in the face. And it was something that Carter and I was talking about offline here, is having that self-awareness of your own aging process. and those around you. And then preparing for maybe you becoming demented. Maybe you have mobility issues. Maybe these things that might happen to you, but you want to prepare in the event that they kind of do happen. And what's your plan? What are you going to do? Who is around you to support you? And my program goes into, what if you're a single woman? You're an aging woman. You have different issues of aging than an aging man, who has different issues than an aging couple. So we really have to address, as a financial professional and insurance professional, you really do have that extra, like a secret sauce, right? Because you're able to watch and witness your clients over time maybe become more frail. And Tim, to your point, when you talked about mobility, I have one of my presentations that I call Walking Like You Stole It. And that was something that I stole from my gerontology professor all those years ago in graduate school, because he scared the bejesus out of us, because he would tell us, if you don't take care of your walking and your gait, which is walking, fancy way, and your mobility and your balance, he goes, I promise you, you will end up in skilled nursing. You will end up not being able to do your activities of daily living because you're not strong enough, because you become frail and you develop, which is called sarcopenia, which is just simply loss of muscle mass. And that's something that, as a financial insurance professional, you've got that set of eyes and ears where you can watch your clients. And if they do become more frail looking to you, then I could promise you there's maybe going to be some cognitive issues that go along with their frailty. And therein lies a whole host of financial costs as well.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of is, like, there's a company that's built a big business around that, Life Alert. I've fallen and I can't get up. That actually happened to my grandma, and she laid there for a day and a half, with a broken hip. Oh. That's a scary deal. And, it's like, and luckily we go by the house and we're always, going by all the time. Otherwise, if she didn't have family, I mean, good Lord. She
That's
just
terrible.
died there.
She could. And that happens all the time. I hear stories like that all the time. And our fire departments are taxed to the limit for these firemen, usually men, that go out and they lift these people up that have fallen on the ground. And to your point, sometimes they're super heavy people. And then if you have a spouse who can't lift them up, and that's just one little piece of a whole bigger picture of being a caregiver and the emotional trauma that goes with being a caregiver. Interesting statistic I heard the other day. I was listening to a neurologist over at the Barrows Institute who was saying that 60%, the number shocked me, 60% of caregivers pass away before the person that they're giving care to. 60%.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, we've been working with a few different caregiver organizations behind the scenes to come in and to provide that level of estate planning services because of our digital platform that we have, right? Because we can help with anybody's estate plan that they need proactively, obviously, not reactively, just like with the interrupting aging, right? And then, Richards, thank you for joining us for another episode. You're listening to Barbara Micheletti of Interrupting Aging, that we are very excited about partnering up, because she is going to help a lot of our advisors understand the type of terminology and the different ways to be able to insert their wisdom, but around, the aging process, right? But we've been working with a lot of these other entities where, because I'm learning about the caregiver thing, right? Like, one of the things I learned, there's 61 million caregivers today in the United States, 61 million caregivers. And then you just gave me another stat that 60% of those 61 million predecease who they're taking care of. That is a staggering statistic that I had no idea about, but it's reality. It's happening every day all across the country, right? And if you can become a centralized multidisciplinary team approach around all of these things that we're talking about, which is why we're excited about partnering up with Interrupting Aging, is because that will then help to differentiate you against those who are not making that an integral part of the entire planning people, right? It's about planning proactively. That's why I'm excited about all this stuff that we're learning from you today. So if you don't mind, Barbara, talk a little bit about how you are directly working with advisors or people that are in your program that you're established?
So you brought up just such great points. It's really that planning in advance, right? We just don't know. But when you can have some sort of a plan, and that's why I love the estate planning, and that's why I love what you're doing, helping people create that estate plan, because that's really the beauty of having those documents in place and having the discussions with those documents in place, down to how do you want to die? Where's your letter of intent? Do you have a living will, and do you have a DNR? Or what are your wishes? Because it takes that decision making off your family, which is something that we all want. We don't want our adult kids to have to do, right? Is make those decisions for us. And we certainly don't want them making those decisions when you're lying half dead, or you just were given a cancer diagnosis or something like that. And now you have this emotional trauma that's going along with your decision making. And that's why, to your point, it's best to do this while everybody's cognitively healthy and physically healthy. But as far as how I work within my program, I have created what I call it's an online, on-demand aging and money blueprint program, where you go in as a financial and insurance or senior focused professional, and you literally become this aging expert. You dive right into, it's a gerontology based program based upon the education that I went through. And so it's a gerontology program learning about the aging process in general and what it means to be a gerontologist and what it means to be an aging expert. And then we dive into what's normal versus abnormal aging. So you have a very good idea of, when you do see your clients, that you can pick out, I wonder if that is just normal forgetfulness, because we do experience that as we age, or are they experiencing mild cognitive decline or mild cognitive impairment, or are they experiencing some other sort of dementia-related neurocognitive disease? Because the thing is, one of the first things to go when we develop a neurocognitive disorder is our financial decision-making. And we start making crazy financial decisions. That's where you get frauded. And that's where the beauty of your being an aging expert for your clients, where you can watch for these things and maybe anticipate and look ahead at your clients and go, okay, they're grieving, they've lost a spouse or something like that. And that could put them in some sort of a grief. We don't want them to make decisions when they're grieving, because you can make poor decisions. Or maybe you notice that they are mentally slipping, and you're going to learn to discern, is it normal age-related decline, or is it indeed some sort of a mild cognitive impairment? Those are the things that we discuss and what they learn. And here's the thing. In this program, it's not like you are not aging as you're going through this program. My clients also, it helps them within their own aging process. They can look at this and apply this to themselves, their moms, their dads, their adult kids, their husband or their wife. So you can use it for yourself as well.
So It's really a program that benefits the end user, which is the client. But from a financial planner's standpoint, you're really, I would say, adding a skill set to further separate yourself from the pack. So if you're just really interested in growing your business, it's a very big add-on. And I believe that there's two components there: their caring component, and it's also a business building component. Both of them, and probably that's why Carter is bringing you on, because it's a win-win for what he's doing.
Well, you're really setting yourself apart, right? And that's what you want to do, is you want to differentiate yourself. You don't want to be like every other advisor or agent or whatever. You want to differentiate yourself. This is how you differentiate yourself. You're not going to meet very many people who are a gerontologist and who have a 13-year property casualty insurance background. I can tell you that right now. But as a professional, you want to differentiate yourself from everybody else and say, this is why you want to work with me, because I know these things extra. And being on the cutting edge of our aging population and being poised to be able to help, they're not only your older clients and your elderly clients, but their adult kids and the future generations. I mean, there's $84 trillion that's being transferred now to future generations over the next 25 years. And that's a lot of money to be had, right? And people need to work with financial and insurance professionals. They just don't know that they need to do that. And they don't realize the capabilities that you have as an insurance and as a financial expert.
Yeah, that's thanks to Cerulli and Associates. That's where the statistic comes from. It's interesting because in 2014 that number was, I want to say, 38 trillion. Right, 2014. It's all the way up to $84 trillion. The great wealth transfer that we're talking about, right? And what we're really doing here, Barbara, and what I can appreciate what you're doing, and again, I'm very excited about our partnership and how we're going to be able to work together, is that, having, number one, being proactive and eliminating the type of family fracturing that happens when you neglect this type of planning, right? You can't just bury your head in the sand. Literally, that's what a lot of people do because it's a topic that's so scary or whatever. But our network of advisors are now going to have access to the types of things that you can bring to the table to be a continuation or an offshoot or a complement to their practice, that they can now, be a different type of advisor. You can completely separate and differentiate yourself with all the tools that we have brought together. We met one another on LinkedIn or on Instagram. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I was watching all the stuff you're doing. I'm like, man, this really fits in great with what it is that we're doing. I got to see if, you'd be willing. And then, of course, you happen to be here in Phoenix, too, so that made it even easier, right? So you come over, meet for, for half an hour and everything. But anyway, it's really great with what you're doing and having these modules you've created, an on-demand, capability of taking an advisor and eliminating. Let me just tell you this right now, Richards. If you're a transactional advisor and you want to stay transactional only, this is probably not the place for you to go. If you want to be more transformational and literally be impactful for the families that you want to work with and differentiate yourself that much more, then welcome home is all I would say.
Yeah, you'll actually have more transactions.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, because you're gonna uncover so many things that products and services that you can offer your clients when you hear that you're talking with a husband and a wife, and then you learn that her mom is living with them. She's been taking care of the kids, and so we've got that potential right there, and they don't have long-term care insurance, the husband and the wife, and then they've got one child between them, and then he's got kids on his own from the first marriage, she's got kids of her own from her first marriage, so now you've got a combined marriage. I mean, you just have all these different things. You've got life insurance, you've got all these other different type of products that you can introduce, and they will be happy to hear them, to at least to know that you can see through what's going to happen, and then also to figure out what they're going to do with the mom, because at some point she's not going to be the caregiver to the kids anymore. They're going to become the caregiver for her. To Tim's point earlier, having to be some sort of this caregiver, with mom and dad and everything. So these are slippery slopes that we work with, and so it's just being finely tuned into what's happening. How can you help? And really, at the end of the day as well, I mean, you are doing the right thing for your clients, right? You are being that fiduciary. You're helping them. You're guiding them into making the best decisions that they can with whatever they've got going on, knowing that because of our aging process, in and of itself, we change, we grow, we develop, we evolve, and all that. Things change over time, and so knowing that you're in lockstep with your clients. You're not only helping them, you're doing the right thing for them, but you're able to help their future generations as well, and be a leader in your community, because you're doing something that's just so different from what everybody else is doing. It's not transactional anymore.
I would imagine you get a lot of referrals out of that thing too, because I'm just seeing ladies, having matcha lattes in the morning or a glass of wine in the evening, and it's like, you know what? I really like my financial advisor. You know why? Because he pointed out that Tom's 200 pounds, and if something happens to him, I'm going to end up wiping his butt. So I didn't want to do that. So I talked to him, and we just bought a long-term care policy, and now I'm covered. I'm covered.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that it's like, this guy actually cares. And I've never had a financial planner talk about that kind of stuff, Anyway, I just think It's a good thing. Carter, is there anything else before we go to break that you wanted to ask her? Because
no, I think that's awesome. We can give away plenty more and everything, but in the show notes and Richards, there are going to be all the ways to be able to get in contact with Barbara and learn all about her programs and everything that you can be able to tap into and make as part of your practice if you're smart enough.
Ooh, all right. We're going to take a quick break with Mr. Whiplash over here. We'll be right back, guys. We'll flip the script on Barbara, and she'll get to ask me some questions when we return.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85. It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here with my co-host Carter Wilcoxson. Again, in the house, we have Barbara Micheletti. And now this is the point in time where in space reality here where we're going to flip the script and you get to ask me questions. Anything goes on health, whether it's for yourself, friend, family member, public health, whatever you want, what you got.
So Tim, I am very interested because you're into health so much and the anti-aging world, and I find that world fascinating as well. And in my world of gerontology, we actually call that geroscience, which wasn't taught 25 years ago when I was in graduate school because they hadn't really processed the research on the C. elegans worms back then, which really kind of started this longevity movement. So my question to you, I would love to know, you focus on being healthy at your age. For me as a gerontologist, I'm always looking in the future of what is my 75-year-old body and stuff look like. So my question to you would be, how do you view your aging of right now, how you're taking care of yourself, how you're prepping your future 75-year-old body?
Well, that's an interesting way of asking that question. I like it. So the bottom line is that if we're going to look at this from a fundamental level, is that our bodies are from nature, right? So our bodies are mostly made of water, right? You find that in nature, creeks, ponds, rivers. Our bodies are made of carbon. Our bodies are made of oxygen, hydrogen. You know, it's just, there's certain things that our bodies are base components, minerals, right? So you find minerals in the ground, you find it in our bones. You find bacteria in our gut, same bacteria in the soil. So we are from nature. And I think the plan here to live healthy now, whether it's age 40, 50, or it's 70, 80, 90, 100 plus, is getting back into sync with nature. And that's what it is. So the more we can sync up with nature, the more anti-aging it'll be, because we shouldn't even have these topics about anti-aging. We should just age gracefully through our life and then take our last breath and pass away. But what's happened in our modern world, in these modern times that we're in, we have a tremendous amount of pollution that we're dealing with. And that pollution is bioaccumulating in our body, in our cells, our tissue, our organ systems, our brain tissue, from the air we're breathing, the water we're drinking, the food we're eating, the clothing that we're wearing, the personal cosmetics and personal care products that we're putting on our bodies. I always bring it up all the time. It's like, I remember when I first went to Hippocrates Wellness Center in Florida, and they said, yeah, sodium lauryl sulfate is in most shampoos and it causes cancer. It's a carcinogen. I was like, whoa. I'm like, what? So I wrote that one down. And then they were talking later about toothpaste. And, you know, if the toothpaste bottle says harmful if swallowed, please contact the Poison Control Center. It's got fluoride in it and some other stuff. And I was like, so I looked at that and I wrote that. I remember writing those two down. I got home and I went right to my shampoo and I looked. Guess what the first ingredient was? Sodium lauryl sulfate. And I'm like, shit, I'm putting this in my... Not only is it going in my hair, but it's going in my scalp, right through the skin, transdermally, into my bloodstream, and then it, you know, my body as a protective measure is grabbing it and stick it in my fat tissue so I don't die, you know. And then I looked at my toothpaste, harmful if swallowed, please contact the Poison Control Center. I've been brushing my teeth with this stuff for years. I never like, isn't it? If too much of it can kill you, isn't it killing you a little bit every time you put it in your mouth? Absolutely. But it's just like everybody in society is doing it. Dad was doing it, so you're doing what Dad did. Mom, that's the way it is. So when you're looking at somebody aging now or in the 80s and beyond, it's Start taking care of yourself right now. It doesn't matter which age you are. You have to go back to nature, back to the mothership. And there's certain things that you need to do. Number one is you learn how to have a daily detox protocol. So your lifestyle, the things that you drink and what you eat, maybe some detox products and stuff like that you do. Exercise, pushing crap out of your body. You want to get the flow going, whether it's the bloodstream, the perspiration. You want to get the body moving and getting stuff out. Stop putting the toxins in and learn a daily detox lifestyle to put it out. That's what we teach. The second thing, which might also be the first thing, it's interchangeable, is stress. There's a lot of stress today in the world. Stress is the number one killer. It's dragging people down. It will age you. It'll make you get old faster, because when you're stressed out, you're literally creating chemicals in your body that are not supposed to be there. Because if a saber-toothed tiger adage is coming at you, you're releasing lots of adrenaline. You're releasing cortisol. Your adrenal glands are blowing out all the time. But you're just living your life. But you've become very tolerable to it. Those chemicals that were released for you to fight or flight, to run or punch something, try to live, are just being manufactured, but then they're not being burned off as fuel, and they become toxic in the body. So stress creates a toxic load all the time. And so mitigating your stress through getting out in nature, walks, hanging out with people that are nice to you, that support you, meditation, breath work, and anything that you can do to learn how to be in the eye of the storm, no matter what's going around you, you're going to live a longer, healthier life. This is a practice that's going to last you forever. Then the third thing is flooding the body with that nature, right? So, fresh foods, sprouts, sprouted grains, sprouted nuts, sprouted seeds, things that are living foods, and getting more, incorporating that stuff, fresh, clean food. It's crazy. You can't just say, food, because it's like non-GMO, non-irradiated, non-pasteurized, gluten-free. It's just all this crap you got to, say about food today. It's like, what happened when food was just food? You know what I mean? This was before the pollution, the soils have been farmed out and all this stuff. So again, the answer to your question is three things. Reduce your stress, get the pollution out of your system and out of your home, and stop buying things that are putting it in. And then the third thing is flooding your body with nature and realizing that you're a part of nature, and that's where you got to return. And when you put those three things together and you work on these habits daily, and you create this new environment, this new lifestyle with, non-toxic clothes that aren't off-gassing, and you get your water purified and your air purified, and you start building this environment, you're going to, it's not just stopping the aging process. You're going to age the way you were supposed to. Everybody else that's, people that are 60 years old on 5 medications in a care home, that are in a wheelchair, that's not how people are supposed to be. And when I first got into this industry, I was like, I'm going to live till 140. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that. You know why? You know why they said that? Because they just talked about that 60-year-old in the nursing home that can't move in a wheelchair, and they couldn't even imagine living another 80 years in that situation. That's what they're picturing. But my vision is like, picture yourself when you're 15, 20, running around, you got abundant energy, and you do that till you're 100, or 140 or whatever. That's the difference. So it's all about belief systems. It's about the pollution. It's about stress, and it's about nature. And if we do all of those things, everybody has the ability to go back to aging the way we're supposed to and live long, healthy lives. And everybody listening, you have a God-given right to wake up and feel good, and to be loved, and to feel loved, and just be loved. And a lot of people have lost that. They really have lost that. So we can tap into that kind of stuff. That's where you're going to have a long, healthy, anti-aging life.
Well, you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about the stress. One of the big things of just aging in general, one of the overarching themes of slowing down the aging process is having that positive attitude and eliminating as much stress as you can out of your life. Having that attitude of gratitude, it really does take you a long way. And to your point about the pollution and our food supply, which are terrible. They really are. It has gotten worse. And the research keeps coming back time and time again of having a good diet. And the best diets that I've seen in my research that are out there, again, it goes back to that Mediterranean diet: fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, little to no red meat, which is really not a good thing to have, and very little any type of meat consumption. So it really is the fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, lots of clean water when you can get that, and good, healthy exercise habit combined together, that diet and that exercise. And we're not talking a little bit of exercise because we're pushing against that aging process. It has to be robust exercise and it has to be a really good diet. Are we going to slip? Yeah. Do I like Doritos sometimes? Yes. But we have to maintain, for the most part, if we want to age healthy, because we will pay down the road with diminished walking, diminished mental capacity. We will pay down the road if we don't take care of it now. So you're spot on as far as having it starting right now, and that you do have, everybody who's listening, start today. If you don't, it's never too late. And I say this all the time, you're never too old. It's never too late to start a healthy program.
I was at Hippocrates once, and they told me a story about a gal that was there. She had very weak bones, and she was like 92. And so, a lot of people that age are like, whatever, I've got osteoporosis. I'm just going to fall and break my leg one of these days, and that's it. And she didn't even want to go to the place, but she ended up going and fell in love with it and started feeling better. And then she decided to stay longer. And I can't remember what it was. She stayed like 9 weeks or 13 weeks. It's a 3-week program. She stayed, I think it was like 9 or 13, somewhere in there. And she increased her bone density in that time period, like 22 to 26% on that lifestyle. And what they did was they got her on fresh food and they got her lifting heavy weights. They did weight resistance exercise. So, and I remember, I'll never forget, he's like, if you have osteoporosis and osteopenia, you're dealing with this kind of stuff. Your number one deficiency is you have a weightlifting deficiency. That's what it is. You need weight and stress on those bones. That's number one. Calcium, well, actually they tested, this is a big takeaway for people. Only 1 out of 125 people actually have calcium deficiencies. So the sham of the calcium supplement industry is robust, and it's all the way up into medical communities now prescribing people to go get calcium pills when it's only 1 out of 125 that actually need it. And then what do they go to the store and get? Ground up chalk, which is another carcinogen that causes cancer, or like ground up oyster shells, which can cause hardening of the arteries, gallstones, and kidney stones. Not a solution, not bioavailable. Like if somebody asked me and they were one of those 1 out of 125, then we would probably recommend, we'd recommend Arjuna tree bark, which is a totally bioavailable source of calcium. But again, it's a weightlifting deficiency, right? So did you have any other questions for me?
Oh, I was actually going to make a comment on about your story with the osteoporosis. I practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and one of the ladies that I roll with, that I train with, she's 70.
So cool.
She's 70, and she can kick my butt, and she is a purple belt. She told me she reversed completely her osteoporosis, and she'd only been practicing. She's been training since she was 65. So she's been practicing for 5 years. And I was a little shocked when she told me that. I said, "You did what?" And she said, "I reversed my osteoporosis by training." To your very point, she does the heavy weightlifting and she does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Between those two and eating well, she eats as healthy and as fresh and as clean as she could. She is very strong. And so what a great success story. About what your story was as far as that woman being able to reverse her osteoporosis. It's absolutely true. Like, we can't stop the aging process. That's where geroscience comes in at. But we can slow it down, and we have more control of our own aging process than most people think.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, Carter. I think that's it, buddy.
Well, yeah, you know what? And again, there's going to be plenty in the show notes to be able to get in contact with Barbara. Barbara, you're such a breath of fresh air and an additional piece of all the things that we try to bring to help not only advisors, but obviously advisors' clients, right? I mean, and if you're in the financial services business, you do have a heart for helping people and you want to help people, right? And when I met you and I saw what you're doing and everything, I just like, this is a no-brainer. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Hey, Enrichers, if you want to be able to see all of our previous guests that are awesome, just like Barbara Micheletti of Interrupting Aging, you can go to our website at www.thehealthandwealthpodcastshow.com and make sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast, Podbean even. So I just want to say that it's always a pleasure this week is a crazy week. Again, it's the Waste Management Phoenix Open Week, Super Bowl week, and everything. Very exciting about what's going on. Super thankful to have Barbara come on. So for my co-host, Mr. Chemical Free Body himself, I'm Carter Wilcoxson, CEO and founder of CSI Financial Group and Epic Services Company. Thanking you for coming on. Barbara, again, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for inspiring so many. Hopefully people will start thinking about exactly what is it that they're doing, and then we'll get more people to learn more about what it is you can do to help them help their clients.
Can I just thank you guys both for doing what you're doing? Tim, you're spreading the word about being healthy and then getting back to nature, which is such a beautiful thing. And Carter, thank you so much for what you're doing, getting that word out about just the estate planning and taking care of your loved ones. I mean, we are in February, and this is the month of love. And this is just the perfect, these are the perfect, ways to be able to express this love, is to be able to help your friend, your family with this type of planning. So thank you guys for what you do. And thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
Our pleasure.
Hey, so in Richards, until next time, we will see you on the Health and Wealth Podcast Show. Thank you, everybody. Hey, in Richards, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Wilcoxson.
And I'm your host, Tim James. And by God, we are committed to helping you guys have fat wallets, flat bellies. So tune in again for another episode, and make sure to like, share, and drink a lot of water.
Or beer.
You have just listened to the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim.